Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boomer Bust channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and I am happy to finally be back talking some NFL draft, talking some Chicago Bears. You know, it's the stuff I love to do. Um, it's been a semester. It's been a spring. It's been a few months if you've been listening. So I really hate that I did not get to dive in as much as I wanted to, but wanted to take some time to really just chop it up about the draft and the Bears. And then next week I will be out of the country, but when I get back, I believe that's draft week. So yeah, yep. When I come back, it'll be draft week. So we're definitely going to dive into it pretty heavy then. But anyway, so let's talk about the draft. Let's talk about the Bears. Let's do all that. I'm gonna start off talking about the draft, and I know every year you get some people that's like, why do we care? Why does it matter? I mean, look, I'm not going to personally knock anybody as a football fan if you don't follow the draft. I get it. It's not everybody's thing. But obviously, these players matter. And then people get interested like this year when we got a high pick or the number one pick, and they want to know about these players. And so the thing is, even if we don't have number one pick anymore, all of it is going to affect what we do depending on how it shakes out. So anyway, but this draft is it's an odd draft to me, to be honest with you. And again, I've been doing this for a long time, so this is an odd draft to me. I think there's two reasons that make this draft odd. Number one, well, actually, I should say number one is that you don't, or sorry, let me back up. Number one, I have to flip the order. I was going to say this is number two, but I think this is important to say first. The cornerback position is not the premium position it used to be. So when you think about the premium positions, obviously, or I would say this year is this is probably the first year that I'm starting to break it down like that, because that helps you kind of understand the overall scope of the class. So you got premium positions, obviously. Quarterback, we know that's number one. But then you talk about edge rusher. I would say D line, interior D line. I think any D lineman can be a premium position. Maybe outside of like a true nose tackle, but you don't really see that stuff no more. So I think anybody that can provide a rush, because who's going to say Aaron Donald or Chris Jones are not, top tier players? So D line, and then you got left tackles. Really, I think both tackles are starting to become. I really think right tackle is really changing its value, and so I would argue both tackles. And then obviously, if you got a left-handed quarterback, that is the blind side. But whatever the blind side tackle is, and really that's it. Because when you think about, again, what are people paying, what's affecting games, just what people, where can you get those positions in the draft, all of those things. You've had a change over these years that really started with the running back. I mean, because for the longest time, you had kickers, punters, interior linemen, guards, centers, whatever. They were never highly valued. But then we got to a point, because we know running backs were going top five. We got to a point, and I really feel like the first one I remember was the Cowboys, just running back by committee. And it was like, whoa, you got two good running backs? And then that kind of became the thing. But then they became dime a dozen. And some people could argue they always were. But that just means you get valuable players in later rounds. So you don't have to pick a top five running back to be good. You can get a running back in the second round, third round, seventh round, undrafted. We seeing it all over the place. And so I think the availability of the position, not so much the impact of the game, but the availability of the position is what really made running backs dime a dozen. Now, you had this long stretch of people, and they still do. It's a passing league. The running game don't matter. No one runs. That's not true at all. You can look at the numbers, it's not true. And obviously, in the last few years, we've seen a return to teams that focus only on the run. So, football's football. I think running backs can impact the game heavily. But at the same time, again, where can you get those guys? That is what changed the conversation. But anyway, receivers started to get that too. And I really think about Wes Welker as the first one that really changed that narrative. I mean, again, he was traded from Miami and was a returner. And they turned him into a very impactful slot receiver. And that was one of the first time, not the first time, but that was one of the first times you got the small receiver that people would have before said couldn't play receiver becoming impactful. Moss and other guys like that, they were saying they were too big. They were like, we need 6 foot to 6'1", 5'11" to 6'1". That's about the sweet spot. West Coast was the dominant thing. They wanted people built a certain way because they thought they ran routes the best. But then we got into this era where you could do whatever flavor receiver you want. You had the Antonio Browns. You have the Scary Terrys now. Who else is like that? I mean, Steve Smith was kind of like that too. But you got these guys that are more skinny but route runners and cross the field and all that. You got obviously the jumbo receivers, the 50-50 guys, the physical ones. You got the deep threat. You could do whatever. You got the small slots. So then the availability of receivers changed as well. Like again, I think it's a toss up when I look last year at the top receivers and who was a first round pick, who was a non first round pick. I really think it's a toss up. And so you can find those guys in other places. But all that to say that we find our place now, inside linebackers or really off ball linebackers have fallen off in the value because of how they spread out the field. And then corners now, I just feel like they're not as valuable as they used to. I think, again, a shutdown corner used to be a premium thing. You look at Jalen Ramsey, not only the impact he has on the team, but also what they think of him in terms of moving him. Now, you could say the Rams are in a tank mode, rebuild mode. You can say that some people say Ramsey didn't play good the last few years. Now, numbers don't always agree, but hey. So, but I think overall the message is still the same. I mean, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. Well, I guess it's not a good example because the Rams just won the Super Bowl with Ramsey. But we know it wasn't because of Ramsey. Ramsey, for whatever you want to say about the call, Ramsey gave up a huge touchdown. They still won. Obviously, the Chiefs ain't got no top tier corners. And so what you start to see, even with the Eagles and the Bengals, what you start to see in this league, which I'm sure has always been true, but you want 4 to 5 guys who are disciplined and know what they're doing. The rest of it don't, like, I'm fast, I could cover one guy, like that's cool, but I need 2 safeties and 2 corners that understand the calls and don't blow coverages. That's really, even the Bills, another team that had that. Like, you starting to see secondaries where you don't necessarily need the best corner in the league. You need guys that know how to communicate and don't blow coverages, because the way the rules are set up and the way people attack the field, one blown coverage and they flip the field or they get a touchdown. And so you really want guys that are smart. The athletic ability to just shut someone down isn't necessarily what it used to be. And so, in my opinion, corner is just not the premium position that it used to be. So that's huge because this class is corner heavy, real corner heavy. I've never seen a draft like this with this many corners. So obviously, like a quarterback or tackle or whatever, if it was a quarterback heavy draft, you would know what's going to happen and you would understand it. But because corner is not the premium position that a quarterback is, or tackle or edge rusher, that makes this draft kind of weird because you got a whole bunch of corners and not everybody's valuing corners. The second thing that makes it weird is you don't have a lot of top premium. You don't have a lot of top prospects in premium positions. And so quarterback, while I think is a pretty decent class, it depends on what you think. Like most people only look at like the first, second round quarterbacks. I think it's a pretty decent class. But this class is getting a lot of a lot of speculation, and it's funny because last year's class was terrible, and I said it from the beginning. Yet they got so much praise. People were talking about what was that kid's name? We don't even remember. Matt Corral. People were talking about him as the third overall pick. Like it was insane last year, and we saw what happened to them. And this year, these are legit prospects because everyone's talking about next year, and I don't know what those quarterbacks look like, but everybody's talking about next year and completely dismissing this class who has two studs. You have a wild card in Anthony Richardson, who Jalen Hurts was a wild card. Lamar Jackson was a wild card. And then you got Will Levis, who very much profiles like Josh Allen in terms of a prospect. So I think it's a good group. And then you got Hendon Hooker, who I think is absolutely a first round quarterback. So, but they're getting very scrutinized. So, I mean, I think Stroud and Young have kind of solidified in the top three picks, but still there's questions back and forth. So usually there would be no questions. Like I told y'all before, Richardson's going in the top 10. Now, I think that's still going to happen. And that was before people even talking about him in the first round because that's what happens with quarterbacks. They get pushed up. But you would think with Levis, Richardson, Young, and all that, obviously we traded the pick. Carolina moved up. We think they're going to take quarterback. Houston doesn't need to move up. They're right in position. But now we're waiting to see who's going to make that jump up to try to get these other quarterbacks and where they're going to go. So there's that. But outside of that, you don't have, I think it's a good tackle class personally. I think it's a really good tackle class, but I don't think it has the top tier talent because the best that you have is Paris Johnson to me. The best that people think is Peter Skoronski, and they're not sure he's a tackle. Then the guys that are really good, and I'm happy they're starting to get love, they're strictly right tackles. Antoine Harrison from Oklahoma played left tackle, but he's going to be a right tackle. Darnell Wright, he's a right tackle. Broderick Jones isn't even good to me, but he's like Evan Neal. He's one of those typical, prototypical prospects. So you got him. But then I think there's some other guys down the line with some good potential as well. So I think it's a good tackle class, but people aren't treating it like a good tackle class. And to be honest, I understand there's a lot of questions there. And then the edge rusher is terrible. I don't care what people say. They say it's an edge rusher class. It's really not. Like, there's a lot of people, but there's not a lot of high-end talent. Will Anderson, I still got questions about, but he is head and shoulders above anybody else. So then after that, you got a huge fall off. Like Luke Van Ness is talked about in top 10, top 15. I have no clue why. I'm not going to lie to you. I have no clue why he is being talked about as a top 15. Because if anything that you want to say about him positively, you have to acknowledge the man did not play a whole lot. He didn't even start. And so there's that. And then Tyree Wilson, I do not think he is what people think he is. At least coming out the gate, and he had some injuries this offseason where he couldn't participate. So people are cooling off on him, but they still think he'll be top 5. Then, of course, you got Jalen Carter, which not edge, but, D-line. We know what's going on with Jalen Carter. Now I'm starting to see the questions about him on the field, which is interesting that it's almost like the media is scared to go outside of the popular opinion, because it wasn't until after the off the field stuff that I start to see a few people say, yeah, his motor is not that good on tape. It's like, I've been saying that. Like, so Jalen Carter is a question there too. So there are no slam dunks in the premium positions outside, uh, I guess Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, but quarterbacks is never a slam dunk. So that makes this draft different too, because I start thinking about 7. I mean, you could say, so if you say Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson are bona fide to teams, they're going to take them. Okay, I can see that. But once you get about to 7, what do you do? Do you want to try to reach on a quarterback? Do you take a corner? Do you really want to spend a top 10 pick on a corner? These tackles, which one do you like? Do you trust any of them? Who do you take? Luke Van Ness is a risk. So he's an edge rusher, but he's a risk. Maybe you take him. Who do you take? So there's no slam dunk for like premium position players. And to be honest, so what I look at is I'll say like a premium plus, premium, or just a premium minus. Really, premium minus we don't got to talk about, but a premium plus player is like CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. That premium position, and that's like a plus prospect. That's like a blue chip prospect. Then you got standard positions. So standard plus, standard minus. Now again, with this corner class, you have a ton of standard plus with them, but really that's it. Like linebacker, there's not much there. And again, that position has been devalued, so there's not much there when you're talking about the linebackers. There's some late talk about Drew Sanders, but at the same time, like I don't really see it. And then you're talking about what's his name from Clemson? Is it Trey Simpson? Something Simpson. Which I think he actually looks pretty good, but yeah, I'm probably not spending a top pick on him. And I don't know how many people are going to be spending top picks on off-ball linebackers going into the future, but there's that. So again, you start looking around and you say, well, who are the other people? You know what I mean? Who are the other prospects that make me feel good to use a top 10 pick on them or a top 15 pick on them? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying people don't want corners or won't take corners, but corner isn't the premium, and I feel like in 5 years ago, people would have been drooling to get these corners. I really don't feel like people value them like they used to. And then the receiver, running back, you already know what that is. Even though you got good running backs, not valuable. The receivers, not a great class for top end talent. And again, receivers, not a premium position. And it's a receiver and tight end is weird because they have big impact. But again, the availability doesn't show you have to get one in a high pick. So there's that. Because it's a great tight end class. Receiver class is kind of shaky. So it's just like I look at this group again. It's just like outside of all these corners, who do you really want to take? Now I don't mind taking a tight end, but are you going to take a tight end with a top 10, 15 pick? I don't know about that. So again, it's a lot of question marks. I really just don't think this draft has a lot of top end talent as prospects. Obviously, people could get in situations and be productive. So that's what's making this all weird. Which now I'm switching to the Bears about 20 minutes in. But I think that gives us a bit of an advantage because sitting at 9, if we stay there and pick, you're talking about so many possibilities of what you could have. Now, one thing that people just forget about every year with the draft is that we're not part of a team. We're just sitting here looking at everything as fans and media, but teams have narrowed down lists. So there's people that are off their board for whatever reason because they got rules and philosophies they go by. Might be the owner, might be the GM. So you might have people that say Jalen Carter's off the list. We're not even considering him. It's things like that. There's a couple players that have gotten hurt during this off season or coming off an injury. Some people say we're not considering them. I just realized or found out Brian Brees has like all these injury history, And because I'm like, he is clearly a first round pick at D tackle. He's probably better than most, but because of his injury, he's going to fall. And somebody else. So, you got teams that have taken people off the board. So their boards are more narrow than ours. So that's one thing we got to realize. But still, I think just in general, at 9, we're going to have a lot of good options. So talking about what we have done so far, obviously we know we're putting the chips in on Justin Fields, which I think is perfectly fine. Like I raised the possibility of them moving on from Justin Fields just so people were aware. And I do think it was a conversation. And I do think if what's his name? If Bryce Young was bulkier, this whole thing would be a different conversation for every team. But that's the way it is. So we're going in with Justin Fields. We got DJ Moore, which helps. The receiving core will be interesting. To be honest, I wouldn't say it don't matter who the receivers are. That's not true. But it doesn't matter a whole lot compared to how we're going to scheme it together, because that's why we have running backs that are dime a dozen. That's why we have receivers that are dime a dozen, because it's about the situation you put them in. And so we got guys that can do some things, different skill sets. Obviously, you got Komet. We bring in Robert Tonyan, which a lot of people are excited about. Which I don't know. He didn't do a lot with the Packers, but that's cool. So I don't love that move because I much rather get one of these tight ends coming out. They're going to be so good, and you'll probably be able to get some in second, third round. But anyway, so we have those pieces. We know what the O line is looking like. I saw recently some an article where people were kind of shocked that Tevin Jenkins said he's playing left guard, and I'm like, did y'all miss when they said Cody Whitehair is playing center this year? Like, that came from Ryan Poles himself. So we already knew he wasn't playing. It was going to be a spot at left guard. But everybody's still on the Lucas Patrick train. Don't know why. But it looks like Nate Davis is going to be at right guard. And I'm still okay with him. I'm not over the moon about it, especially coming from the Titans. And then Tevin will be at left. And then Cody will be at center. So obviously we want to know about the tackles. I was about to call him Broderick. What is Braxton? Braxton Jones at left tackle. More than likely will stay there. I saw some stuff on Twitter, people talking about getting Paris and Braxton moving to the right tackle. He's not a right tackle. He's not a right tackle. He's still developing as left tackle. The only reason Braxton gets a lot of credit is because when he was drafted. If he was drafted higher, his rookie year would have been below average. But because he was drafted so low that, what he did, people said it was cool. So I think he could continue to grow in that. I don't think he should have the spot. But obviously people are thinking, okay, what are we going to do for the tackle? Because we really actually are pretty close to completing this O-line than some people think. So we got that. And again, it's really a matter of what we're going to do. And I think last year showed you that more than anything else. All the roster spots and all that, yeah, it's important. But at the end of the day, if you stop and decide, hey, we're running option and a Lamar Jackson-like offense, then all of a sudden a lot of things don't matter as much as they used to, and some things matter more. So it's all about what you are asking the players to do. As I always say, people talk as if players are just good and bad. That's not what it is. It's the scheme, it's the context. What are you asking the players to do? So that is going to be more important to me than anything else, is what is this offense going to look like schematically? And so that's going to be a big question. Then from there, we got to see how Justin Fields handles it. The defense, however, still sagging. I mean, well, people are excited. Edmonds to me is, like I said, a small step down from Roquan. I mean, okay, whatever. And we pay him big money, so okay, whatever. We got Edmonds, cool. Guy cover a lot of space. TJ Edwards, I really don't know how we're going to use him, so that'll be interesting to see. And then the secondary is pretty much the same, so I'm sure we'll try to go after that. So We still got a lot of talent gaps to fill. And for me personally, I don't think Kyler Gordon comes back to the slot. I don't think he should, but we'll see. I feel like we signed somebody. I can't remember right now. But looking towards the draft, the question's going to come out, what would I do? What would I do? And typically when you're not in the top five, it's a lot of trade back discussions. So people gonna want to trade back, get more picks, and I understand that. There's a lot of players that are similar slotted, and so if you can get an extra first round pick and get two of them, yeah, that'd be great. Will we do that? Who knows? We'll see. Um, the Eagles are going to be a hot trade partner. They just went to the Super Bowl and they got number 10. So they don't necessarily need that pick. Now they could splurge if they want to take a Bijan Robinson, if they want to take a chance on Luke Van Ness, whatever. If Jalen Carter falls that far, I don't think he will. But so they could stay there and splurge, but they're going to be a hot trade partner. So some people might look at us and say, we'll just trade with 10. But it's possible to trade back, obviously. And I wouldn't even say that's the best move, but I do think, that's a pretty good move. Looking at the way the roster is set up now and what we have in this draft class, I'm probably sticking with what everybody's saying, and that's looking at tackle, because you're going to have options. I mean, Peter Skoronski is a 5-tool guy. Now, I think there's going to be some real questions about him playing tackle with his short arms and some of his play, too. So they're talk as if he is perfect on the field, just got short arms. I don't think that's true. And you can look at my breakdown of him. I gave my breakdown to him. I do think he's highly technical, more so than the other guys, but I don't think he's perfect. And then, yes, the short arms will be a question. Now, on the right side, could that, some people say, oh, it's less of a problem? Maybe. You got a mobile quarterback. He's going to help you out. But at the same time, people are going to put their best edge rushers anywhere they want to put them. And so he's going to have to deal with that at some point. But he's a 5-tool guy. So if you want a guy that has versatility, that's a guy to get. Now, Paris Johnson, to me, I told you, is the best lineman of the group. So if it's me and he's there, that's who I'm taking. Because he could play left or right, and he has extreme potential. And obviously he's young. You had two young tackles that could really grow together. So that's probably what I'm looking at. And yeah, I do think we could use a corner, but obviously we just took a corner. So they're going to give Kyler Gordon that rope. And I just don't see us taking another corner. Even if it's for the slot, I don't see us doing that. And again, that's what this draft is heavy on. So really, I'm looking at these linemen because like I told you, I like Darnell Wright. I like Harrison. Um, and I like the guy. Ooh, I can't think of his name or his school. It's blue. I forgot what school he plays for. BYU. The guy from BYU. I like him too. Not in the first round, but I do like him. And so I'm probably looking at tackle with that number 9 pick. Um, and it's like I said, it's tough. Outside of that, for number 9, the rest of these guys, you talking about some real question marks, because I don't think you need to bring in another receiver. Obviously, DJ's gonna want the ball. Darnell's used to getting the ball, and they got to find a way to work in Claypool. You bring in another receiver, you're getting kind of crowded. I think whoever that 4 and 5 receiver is doesn't matter as much. So not thinking too much about that. Tight end, like I said, you brought in Tunyon, so I don't know how much sense that makes, especially at number 9. And then these other guys, I mean, it's tough, man. It's not a lot of prospects that I think are like that legit. So for me, I'm looking at those tackles unless a Jalen Carter falls down somehow, or Tyree Wilson. We could look at that. Lucas Van Ness might fall that way. Maybe. I mean, you could. I wouldn't personally like that pick, especially if you still got Paris Johnson on the board, but maybe you could. So that's how it's kind of looking to me. I know a lot of people have already been saying that, but that's my rationale of why I'm kind of looking at it that way, because I really think that the tackles are going to be a better value for the Bears at that point. And then looking ahead to the rest of the draft, obviously we don't know how it's going to shake out. But yeah, we really need defense. I mean, we still need defense. We don't have a legit edge rusher. So I do think that some of these guys is going to be better to go in the second round rather than using a top 10 pick on them. Those are like really pretty much all, like Lucas Van Ness, um, to be honest, Tyree Wilson, uh, definitely Miles Murphy, Nolan Smith. I don't even know. He's more of a project to me, but I would feel better with him in the second round than the first round. Um, did I watch Keon White? I think I still haven't added him to the list to watch. So I can't say for sure about Keon White, but there's a lot of those guys. Obviously you got Foskey, who, excuse me, is supposed to be projected in the later rounds. I'm not a Will McDonald fan like some people are. Not especially some people talking about him in the first round. That I just do not. I don't understand that. So I could not really agree with that. Because a lot of these guys, like I said, they're more so projects. Like they might have some physical talents to them, but at the same time, they're not ready. I mean, you got Felix Azuma, who I think is pretty good, but I would feel better with him in the second round. Trying to see some of these other guys that people are talking about. Byron Young, I would take him like third, fourth round. A lot of upside, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, I just don't see any edge rushers that I'm jumping out of my seat for at number 9. So there's that. That's what I'm kind of looking. I do like Rashee Rice. He's not getting a lot of hype, and so I wouldn't mind if we got him in the later rounds. But again, I don't think receiver is necessarily a pressing matter. I think we need to get in some safety competition, even for Eddie Jackson, and we need a slot, and we need all types of D line. And there's some ones I like Maisie Smith out of Michigan. There's some good ones. Brian Brees, obviously, like I mentioned, if we could get him. So there's some guys there, but I really think tackle is the target at 9, even if you move back. And then the rest of the second, third round, you really want to get some defense. That's my thoughts. So anyway, I just want to chop it up about that. Definitely put the questions in the comment section. I'll answer them. Share it around. Let me know what you think. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.